Hello everyone, welcome to Dugout Daily. I'm Charlie and I'm joined by Bernard. How are you, mate?
I'm fine, Charlie. I hope you're doing very well.
Yeah, good as usual. We'll get straight to it then. 5-1 win the other night in Belgium. Thoughts on the performance?
Yeah, I think we spoke off air, and I've obviously in my vlogs and stuff. I think a lot of City fans were a little bit worried about this because it'd become a must-win game, hadn't it? I think after, well, not a must-win, but a draw wouldn't be great because obviously we'd have to start beating teams like PSG and RB Leipzig away and stuff like that. So it did become a sort of must-win game, and Bruges have been playing very well, or Brugge, whichever way we pronounce it. They've been playing really well actually, and they've been doing okay in their own league. They're defending the title. Of course, they're still up there. I think they're up there in second spot. And everything I've seen of them, I've watched a bit of the PSG game, I watched a bit of the Leipzig game, and yeah, they were a little bit of a worry for me. But I think a bit of both, actually. I think our total, the way we played and the fact they looked a little bit scared. I thought we'd be a bit scared with the atmosphere and stuff like that, but because obviously we can sort of go into our shells a little bit, City. But I think we sort of quietened the atmosphere very quickly. It wasn't as intimidating as I thought it was going to be in a little tight ground like that. And I thought obviously they were a bit scared. They were a bit scared of us, a bit respectful. I think they give us too much respect. They certainly give us a bit too much space at times, apart from perhaps the first 5 minutes. But if you think about the Burnley game and compare it to that Brugge game, it's like chalk and cheese. You know, it's totally different. Burnley didn't give us any space whatsoever, but Brugge did for whatever reason, and we took full advantage of it. And I was quite happy about it at the end of the day. I mean, 2-0 at half time could have been a lot more, couldn't it? It could have been double figures, to be honest with you. But you know, they perhaps had a couple of good chances. But yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I thought it was a very dominant European display. We've done a few over time, but we sort of tend to forget we're quite experienced now, aren't we, in Europe? I always forget that. It's we've been there a while now, so I sometimes have less faith in them than I should have. That's just the old City coming out, typical City sort of view. But very, very. I mean, any other team put that sort of performance in, commentators will be going mad over it, saying what a wonderful performance. But it's City, so they don't overdo it, do they? Let's be honest about it. But no, a very solid, quality European display.
Yeah. We'll go through the stats for the match. 63% possession. We had 22 shots in the match, 9 on target with 9 off target, 4 block shots. 9 big chances, 6 big chances missed as well. So, as you said, we had a lot of chances in the game.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where obviously if your defender's going to pop up and score, that's great, isn't it? But as you say, certain players weren't quite at it. I mean, every player was at it. Don't get me wrong, but obviously when it came to the crunch, I mean, again, we're going to talk about KDB. Of course, we've got to do, but it wasn't his greatest game again. But yeah, I mean, it is one of those games that, you know, it's hard, isn't it? You score 5 goals and you think we perhaps underperformed in front of goal. You know, we had more chances, we had more opportunities, not just shots, but where crosses were put in, and there's just no one there in the right place to put a toe on them. You know what I mean? There's at least 4 or 5 in that first half from both wings where crosses came in, and we just didn't quite have the right guy in the right place. So that's sort of the stats sort of back up what sort of game it was.
Yeah. We'll go look at this attack momentum graph with can see where the goals are at the bottom.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, obviously, I expected that. If you think about it, obviously, as far as Brugge were concerned, they only really came into it, end of the first half, end of the second half, didn't they? I think the end of the second half, when we started making the changes, it disrupted. Although we brought good players on, and it sort of seemed okay, it sort of disrupted the flow of the game. It allowed them back into it just a little bit. But yeah, it's just total dominance, really, wasn't it? I mean, there's dominance in the first half, but then you look at that second half, it's even more dominance, isn't it? It was even better. Yeah. I thought we were more dominant in the first, but hey, that's stats, isn't it? That's what they show you.
Yeah, and with Club Brugge or Brugge or however you pronounce it, you can see where their goal was at the top. That's really where their only big chance was in the game.
Well, that's right. I mean, it was one of those things where, Ederson didn't have much to do in the game. We'll talk about him, of course, in a minute. But what he had to do near the end of the game, I thought he did very well. I always look at the MEN ratings. Bukowski and Brennan do the Manchester Evening News ratings, and it was Bukowski. He only gives Ederson a 6, and I thought I was totally wrong, because I thought there was at least 3 or 4 things that Ederson did. Considering he'd probably been bored. Let's be honest about it. He'd been bored most of the game, and yet he was alert enough to make 3 or 4 really good blocks late on. So that sort of showed it. When they did attack, at least the defense was okay and all right. They snuck through occasionally, but you've got to expect that. They're not a total disaster of a team. They're a good team, but obviously they couldn't live with us on the night.
Yeah, we'll talk about Ederson, his stats. He had 1 save to make, 36 touches, 96% accurate passes as well. All his long balls were accurate. So, like you said, he didn't have much to do, but when he did have stuff to do, he did it well.
Well, that save was that header, but that doesn't, obviously those stats don't show blocks, do they? I think he had at least 3 blocks where he came to the edge of his area, or to the left and right where he got blocks on stuff where the striker or the midfielder was through. So that doesn't show that. As I say, that 1 save he made from that header was excellent. I certainly wouldn't blame him for the goal particularly. It was just a bit of luck. He got a little touch from another Brugge player who sort of towed it on to another guy. If he hadn't got his toe on it, it would have gone to one of the City players was coming back to clear it, if you like. But that's how it is when you get men in a box. Anything can happen with deflections and stuff like that. But no, as I say, I'll defend Ederson. I mean, he gets a lot of stick, but because I remember someone complaining about that the last game we played where Stefan was in goal and he blocked that chance from the Burnley player, and people say, Ederson wouldn't have done that, but he did exactly the same in this game. He blocked at least 2 or 3 things like that, obviously. But people have their own little select memories of what's happening and preferred players. So I was for what he had to do, I thought he was fine. Absolutely no problem whatsoever.
Yeah. Next up, Kyle Walker, his first Champions League goal. I assume one of the only players in Champions League history to keep a clean sheet and score a goal in the competition. Of course, scored the goal, 2 clearances, 1 block shot, 1 tackle. 1 out of 3 ground duels were won. He lost the possession 13 times, 67 touches, 84% accurate passes, and 1 shot on target, and was up and down the wing all night looking at the heat map.
Yeah. Well, that possession lost surprised me. Did it you, mate? I thought it was quite high. It's interesting that it's not a stat I usually look at when I do my little things. I don't sort of get that detail there, but that was interesting because I certainly kept an eye on Cancelo defending. You know me and Cancelo. I love him going forward, but I sound like a stuck record. We'll talk about it in a minute, obviously, but I'm not as overly impressed when he's coming back. So I'll be interested to see his stats in a minute. But yeah, that does surprise me, Walker. I didn't think it would have been that high, to be honest with you. I thought he had a good game. I mean, if you score a goal as a right back, something's going right, isn't it, in the team? Even in the old days, you used to have inside forwards, and he was sort of playing rather. Because to be honest with you, I don't really like him on the wing. I don't think his crossing's very good, to be honest with you. To me, he gets into good positions and just doesn't quite supply the cross. He hasn't got that sort of skill, but I want him for his pace to get back and save us rather than going forward on the wing. But if he can do that from a more central position, which is what it was, then that's great. But I was surprised by that. But I thought he had a good game, Walker. He's one of my top 4 or 5 on the night, to be honest with you. And you all had good games, so he is quite high up there.
Yeah. Next up, the captain last night, Ruben Diaz. 4 clearances, 3 interceptions, 5 tackles, 5 out of 8 ground duels were won. He lost the possession 9 times, 2 fouls, 87 touches, 90% accurate passes, and 3 out of 6 long balls were accurate. Thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, anything 90% of accuracy is always very good, isn't it? I mean, obviously, you've got to allow again for the 10% and what he's not done quite right. But again, I wouldn't hold any of the defence particularly to blame. I think he got quite end-to-ended, didn't it, by the second end of the second half. It was sort of, once we brought the 5, 3 players and then another couple on, and we changed half the team, basically. They were having a go, even at 3-0, they started to have a go. Obviously, at 4-0, they had more. They had nothing to lose, did they? Let's be honest about it. It didn't really matter. They got beat 7 or 8-1, did it? At least they had a goal, which is fair enough. And Diaz, again, as the rest of the guys there, I thought, as I say, he was solid, and as I say, he didn't have a lot to do the first half, but I think he played just as well as anybody else in that second half. As I say, he's not one of my highest scorers, but he did a good job.
Yeah. Next up, Emerick Laporte, his centre-back partner. 1 interception, none out of 1 ground duels won. That's interesting. Only lost the possession 3 times. 1 foul, 41 touches, 92% accurate passes, and 4 out of 5 long balls were accurate. Thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, because I thought, looking at those stats, you'd sort of say he was a little bit better than Diaz on the night. Obviously, I thought Diaz was slightly better than Laporte, to be honest with you. But it's interesting. I think because Diaz was probably far more involved, is he? Laporte is more not as involved, perhaps, as Diaz is on the certain things. But he's more a little outlet. I mean, what I like about John Stones, perhaps, that we don't get from Diaz and Laporte is that bringing the ball out and stuff. We don't seem to get that as much, do we? They're quite quick to pass it to someone, to give it someone else, and obviously that's what I miss about John Stones' abilities that we don't have when he's not there. But Laporte was as I say, based on that, I mean, I perhaps understated his score. What I thought he scored, I give Diaz slightly higher than Laporte, but I did know Laporte had a good game, but again, you can't say it was such and such his fault or somebody else's fault for anything positive that Brugge did. So again, as a partnership, it seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah. I've got a bit of a question for you. Last season, of course, we saw Stones and Diaz together for most of the season. This season, it's been Laporte and Diaz. Which do you think's the better partnership out of those two?
Well, it's funny. Obviously, we don't know what Stones' problems is at the moment, do we, mate? I don't know if you know any more than I do. I've not really. I know it's supposed to be personal, isn't it? But he had these problems again. A couple of season and a half ago or half. Recently, hasn't he? Personal problems. So that's not a good sign, to be honest with you. Before we knew he didn't fly out to Brugge, I would have put him alongside Diaz in my best team, and I always will, even though Laporte's done a great job. As I said, just for the bonus, I think he's much better at linking. I think he's much better at bringing that ball out than Laporte is and Diaz is. I think he adds a little dimension to City that we don't quite have when he's not playing. The brilliant partnership, don't get me wrong, Diaz and Laporte, but an informed Stones, which is what we got most of last season. Let's be honest about it. He's brilliant. I mean, I would always have Stones and Diaz as my main 2 guys, if you like, with a very able deputy in Laporte, and of course I've no problems with Aki as well. I quite Aki as long as he's playing with Diaz and Stones is certainly okay. But those 3, I would certainly just edge it towards Stones and Diaz, but say no disrespect to Laporte, no disrespect to Ake. I think they can all do a pretty good job.
Yeah, they're all half decent defenders. Next up, João Cancelo. You said you wanted to see his stats. 1 goal. He scored the first goal of the game. 4 interceptions, 3 tackles, 6 out of 18 ground duels won. Lost the possession 21 times. That's quite a lot, actually. 2 fouls, 1 offside, 98 touches, 83% accurate passes, 1 key pass, None out of 1 crosses were accurate. 1 out of 5 long balls were accurate. 1 big chance created. 1 shot on target, and 3 out of 9 dribble attempts were successful. Thoughts on his performance?
Well, based on those stats, mate, he was pretty crap, wasn't he? To be honest with you. I mean, let's face it, he got the UEFA Man of the Match, didn't he? He got the UEFA Man of the Match award. And I read a lot of Twitter, I read a lot of social media, Facebook and everything just for what I do. And people are loving him. And I think he's did a grand job. I thought it was a cracking goal. It was a striker's goal. I didn't expect it to be him there to put that in the net. He even took a nudge off the defenders, still managed to toe poke it through Mignolet's legs. So all credit to him. But yeah, as I said to you before you read those stats out, I wasn't overly impressed in midfield and defensively. I thought he'd give the ball away and lost the ball far too much. But going forward, he's great. And I say I'm having to get used to me left backs and me, perhaps not the right backs, because I think Walker is more defensive, isn't he? Let's be honest about it. I don't really worry about Walker. He's got the pace to get back, but I do worry about Cancelo. I'm sorry. In these, well, it was a big game, of course it was. He did very, very well, but there are problems there, and those stats are very, very interesting. I'll have to find out where you're getting these stats from, mate. Really interests me, though. Who is it, mate?
I'll link them to you after.
Yeah, you can, mate. I've not seen those, and I think they're fantastic, and it sort of backs up what my thoughts are. I mean, when you're at the game, it's very hard to watch players and what they're doing, you know, depending where you stood or where you sat. When you're on TV again, it can be a bit, you know, you can't see the whole picture. You can only see what's going on, can't you, with where the cameras are and where they're pointing, if you like. You don't see the whole pitch. So it is very, very interesting. I say that sort of backs up Cancelo for me. As I said, I would certainly rate him one of our best players, but I think underneath that all, there is a little problem there. And I say, if we keep 3 men, I always think if we've got four defenders and one of them is getting up a wing, like Walker's getting up or Cancelo's getting up on his side, I always think we should be able to keep 3 men back, but it doesn't work like that, and Pep doesn't work like that. But if I was a coach, that's what I'd do. I'd say, right, if you're up, if Walker's up, Cancelo covers and vice versa. That's my boring thinking. I'm not Pep coach, am I? That's my boring quality of coaching knowledge, if you like. But yeah, I thought Cancelo did better. Brilliant goal, and the run as well. The run was fantastically timed, wasn't it? I mean, he beat that. He beat the guys, and he pegged it nearly as quick as Walker, I think. But yeah, as I said, I want a little bit more. And don't forget, that's his work. That's not his favourite side. If you think of, I think he played, was it against Burnley? He played right back as opposed to left back. Yeah, he played. I thought he played a lot better. Don't forget, it's not his side either. His Pep's got. I mean, you know, it's round pegs in square holes, and it works. But that's not his side, is he? That's so if he's having to defend and block and get in the way of midfielders or wingers, he's obviously on his wrong side to do that. So I'm not going to give him too much stick because of that. You know, I don't think you can. I think it's a bit unfair to give defenders stick when they play. It's very hard as a left back to play right back and vice versa. Well, in Pep teams, it's a bit easy because they're getting forward a lot. But yeah, I'm not going to have too much of a downer. I'm going to say those stats aren't great, but yeah, I mean, I'm impressed with Cancelo like everybody else is, but I do have my slight reservations, as I said. But those reservations, there are reasons for it as well. So I'm not going to have too much of a downer on the guy, and he's a City player, and that's all that matters. I just care about that.
Yeah. Into the midfield now. Next up, Rodri. 67 touches, 95% accurate passes. 2 out of 2 long balls were accurate. 1 out of 2 ground duels were won. 1 out of 2 aerial duels were won. Only lost the possession 4 times in midfield. 1 interception and 1 tackle. And he was all over the pitch looking at the heat map. How do you think he played?
Yeah, because we've been talking about Rodri, haven't we? Say I never used to be his big fan, and again, like Cancelo on Twitter and social media and Facebook and everything, he's getting a lot of love. I was looking at something about an hour before I came on here, and you know, which player can we not do without? And the amount of people who were coming up with Rodri was incredible. You know, the numbers saying Rodri's the guy we can't do without. I mean, I wouldn't say that. If I'd answered the question, I would have come up with someone else, probably Foden or something like that. But he doesn't do anything spectacular, does he? Let's be honest about it. But the thing that interests me about Rodri, and I'm going to say this now, let's see what happens against Brighton, whether Rodri is going to be sensational or carry on improving like he has done, because that is the sort of game against the big lads against Brighton that we'll need him to be at his very, very best. And I thought he played very well against Brugge. He did what he had to do. He doesn't do anything fantastic. He does simple things. That's why he doesn't misplace too many passes. That's why he doesn't lose it too much, because he does simple things. He gets in the right spot, and that's half the battle. If you can get in the right place at the right time, then you're not going to get rushed into things, and that's what he seems to be able to do now. That's fantastic. But I must admit, I have said to some other thing, I think in my preview today of the that I'm putting out tomorrow, that Brighton game, I'm going to be very, very. It'd be difficult for me. I'm going there, so it'll be as it say. I'm going to have to rewatch it, if you like, to get a better view, because obviously you don't get a full view when you're at the game, of course. But I'll be very interested. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes and how City go, and particularly how Rodri, who is everyone's current, or seems to be everyone's favourite at the moment. There's probably two or three, but I'll see how it goes. But yeah, against Brugge, I have no complaints at all. He was again up there as sort of not the top level, but the next level down of the City ratings for me. So he had another good, competent game without being spectacular.
Yeah. Next up, the Belgian, Kevin De Bruyne. 1 assist, 65 touches, 87% accurate passes, 2 key passes, 1 shot off target, 1 out of 5 ground duels won, only lost a possession 13 times, was fouled once, and 1 interception. How do you think he played?
Well, yeah, I hinted at it before, didn't I? Again, up till about the 30th minute, I remember once he fell over the ball once, and then for the Mahrez penalty, he fell over the ball. He didn't take the ball with him, and that was at that stage where he started to improve after that. But whether he was feeling sorry for his country fault, his compatriots over there in Belgium, I'm not too sure. But obviously, we've seen this, haven't we? We've seen this in the previous games with Burnley, etc. He's just not quite at it at the moment. But the thing about KDB, it doesn't matter. He'll still carry on. He'll still carry on regardless, even if he's not hitting form like more. I don't think there's any City player. We're going to talk about Sterling, of course we are, but there's no City player who doesn't want that ball and try to do something with it, even though it's not quite working for him. And it's not working for Kevin at the moment. As I say, in a silly way, he set up that penalty. The fact that he stood on the ball and went past it, and then obviously Mahrez picked it up and got fouled. But I think that last 5 minutes after that, I think that you mentioned there the passes. I think he played 1 or 2 excellent little passes, and certainly in the second half before he was taken off, obviously that assist, that was a typical KD. It wasn't distance; it was only 7 or 8 yards, was it, or something like that? But a fantastic little pass, just weighted correctly, and that's what we get off KDB. And the positive for me is, even though for 35 minutes of that game, 40 minutes of the game, or perhaps up to that penalty, 43 minutes, he wasn't very good again, but he tried. But the positive for me was, until he went off, I thought he was coming round. That was the positive. I thought he started doing these nice little touches again. Him look far more confident. Once he does something right, I think it helps. It helps his confidence. He's a confidence player. I don't think he's a sulky player as such, but he likes things to be going right. We know he can be moody. He can get angry if things go wrong. And I think he needed that little bit of confidence. I think he got it back at the start, the end of the first half, and I think it carried on into the second half. And I think if he'd stayed on the pitch, I would have been quite confident that he'd have another assist or 2 or even a goal, because there's that one he I don't know what minute it was, about halfway through, where he just shot with the goal at his mercy. He basically give a back pass to Mignolet. Mignolet just had to sort of catch it. It was, he might have palmed it out. I'm not sure. He didn't have to. I can't remember what he did, but that was he had all the goal to aim at. I mean, Cole Palmer might have got into a similar position, and he would have bent it round Mignolet. But that was it. That sort of summed up Kevin. But as I said, from about the 43rd minute onwards, I'll be positive and say it looks as though it's a bit more like the old Kevin. But wasn't the greatest at the start, but he finished strongly before Pep gave him a rest and hooked him off. Yeah.
Next up, Bernardo Silva. 46 touches, 91% accurate passes, 1 key pass, 1 out of 2 long balls were accurate, 2 out of 3 ground duels were won. Only lost a possession 5 times, was fouled twice, 1 clearance and 2 interceptions. How do you think Bernardo played?
Yeah, again, it was vying for man of the match for me again. What wasn't quite man of the match, but again, I mean, I think Pep quite rightly took him off to give him a rest because he's got to tell he's doing this game in, game out, isn't he? He's a fantastic little machine. His stamina's tremendous. As I say, he lost possession there like 5 times. I was surprised it was as many as that. I always think he hardly ever loses possession. Very, very rarely loses possession. But absolutely, I mean, that sort of thing is based on perhaps when he collects a ball in a bad position as well, and players lose it, don't they? Sometimes where they're not. So it is a sort of stats can be misleading as well as the very, very useful. But yeah, he was excellent. I mean, I love Bernardo anyway, but as I say, my reservations going forward that he might not be with us. I hope he is, and obviously everything Pep says implies that he still wants to go. When you sort of read between the lines, which is a worry, but you can't ever knock his commitment to the cause. And I think he come out today and thanked the fans, and I think we love him basically. And as I say, I'm surprised that people put in Rodri as a guy who we wouldn't do without. I mean, surely Bernardo's got to be up there at the top of one of the guys at the moment we can't do without. But because he's playing a very because he's sort of not playing up front. I think he's really good playing a bit more forward, but he's not. He seems to be sort of linking the defence and the forward. He seems to be playing in, that heat spot showed it there, didn't it? It's all over the middle of the pitch. And that's the role he's been asked to play. He's not been stuck up front or stuck on a wing or whatever, which I think sometimes he does for his national team. So, yeah, he just does what he's told, and he does it very, very well. Again, one of my favourite players on the night, all day long, all night long.
Yeah, I've said a couple of times the best piece of business we did in the summer was keeping Bernardo, and
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's pretty obvious, to be honest. Next up, Riyad Mahrez, 2 goals, 3 shots on target, 1 shot off target, 1 shot blocked. He won the penalty. Missed a big chance, 70 touches, 84% accurate passes, 2 key passes, 1 out of 3 crosses were accurate, 2 out of 3 long balls were accurate, 9 out of 5 ground duels were won, 13 times he lost the possession, was fouled 3 times, 1 interception, 2 tackles, and from his heat map at the top, he was all over the pitch, really. How do you think Mahrez played?
Yeah, I think he's not. Even now, he's not everyone's cup of tea, is he? I think he was perhaps a little fortunate to get into the team for this game, to be honest with you. But he grabbed it, didn't he? He took full advantage. I mean, I'll give him credit. I mean, obviously, since he skied that one at Liverpool, that penalty. I mean, at least I think he's had the ones he's had since then. He's took responsibility for. He's put in the net, hasn't he? And that was another cracking penalty. I mean, even if Mignolet had gone the right way, he wouldn't have got to that. It's right in the corner. Fantastic. And he did have to wait a long time, if you think about it as well. There's a bit of pressure on him there. He'd have to wait a long time. It was only 1-0 at the time as well, and it was just before our time. So we needed that, really. And I think he had a really cool head, and all credit to him. He had his faults. Of course he does. He is a little bit greedy, but that's what he is. That's how he plays. In the same way, we'll probably give a mention to Mr. Grealish in a minute. Yeah, that's the style of players they are, and they're very similar players from different sides of the pitch. That's my opinion. But I thought he did tremendous. But the second goal as well. I mean, obviously a fantastic through ball, but I mean, he just waited. He just waited and waited, and it's the sort of thing that Sterling does and then messes it up. But Mahrez waited and waited because he's got a cool head and he knew where it was going. So Mignolet committed himself, and Mahrez just casually side-footed it in that far corner. Knowing where Mignolet was, and you can't. That's experience. That's years of experience. That's brilliant. That's what you want more of from him. We don't always get it, unfortunately, but he took his chance. I'll be very surprised. I'm sort of thinking he may be kept in for this next game, to be honest with you, even though I say he's not been great this season so far. He's been a bit sulky. I think we used the word sulky in the last time we spoke about Mahrez, but no, he grabbed it with both hands. I was quite happy with Mahrez's performance, and he can do this against European teams if he's given the space. Don't forget, and as I said, I think all through this, I thought Brugge give us too much space, and people like Mahrez give them space. he can't do it. He's willing to have a go and jink in and beat players. That's what he wants to do. If people are tight on him, he sort of fades out of the game. But yeah, it was a good game for Mahrez. He'll be happy with that. Hopefully now he won't. If he does get dropped against Brighton, he won't get on to another sulk again. But very, very impressed. He's one of my top 4 or 5 scorers on the night.
Yeah. Rich, United fan, says, "Well played, City. You should have given them a 2-goal start like we did. Makes the match more exciting."
Yeah, I did the podcast last night. And it was half time. It was 2-0, and I thought, well, I'm not overly bothered. I don't bother about United unless we're playing them. I don't really watch out for that. But I thought, well, they'll probably win it. I mean, that's what just because that's what United do. I mean, they're very good at doing that. But as I say, I'm sure they'd be happy the other way around. I'm sure they'd be happy with a couple of goals up, and then they can make it 5-1. Sort of ease to a nice victory and rest some players. But it's an interesting point. Yeah, I mean, it would have been a more exciting game, but there you go. I mean, I suppose it's typical City, typical United is getting beat 2-0 at half time and coming back to win the game. I think it was like that when I was a lot younger anyway.
Yeah. Next up, Phil Foden. One assist, which was a brilliant assist for Cancelo as well. 1 shot on target, 3 shots off target, 1 big chance missed, 55 touches, 87% accurate passes, 2 key passes, 7 out of 10 long balls were accurate, 2 big chances created, 2 out of 6 ground duels were won, lost the possession 12 times, was fouled twice as well. How do you think Foden played?
Yeah, I mean, if you think back, I mean that assist for the goal was very England Andorra-ish, wasn't it? Where he sort of roamed around the middle, chipping it at will into the opponent's box, and that's what he exactly did. That's what he did with that. And again, the thing is with City, we've got so many players now that other teams really have to keep a close. You can't putting 2 or 3 men on them because obviously there's other guys there. You can't put 2 or 3 men on Foden because we've got the other bit. We've got the KDBs and we've got all the other guys there, even defenders who are moving forward. You can't do it. So, as I said, with this, as in the Andorra game, if you like, for England, he looks exceptional, and he looks exceptional because Andorra, as Brugge did, he had a little bit more time to do things. He had a little more time. He didn't get that time against Burnley. He looked flipping awful against Burnley the other day because he wasn't given that room to do that sort of thing. And I think he was playing more on the wing anyway. I think against Burnley more than the central role, but. It was excellent. I mean, it was excellent. You can only play as well against who you're playing, can't you? He was brilliant. I mean, again, like Bernardo, and he just for me keeps going. He's never going to. So he got fouled. I mean, they were very physical. I thought we're not mentioning that. I thought they were quite physical. I wasn't impressed with some of they left the shoulder in occasionally. I noticed that, and they got away with it. They left a foot in occasionally, and sometimes they got away with it. I think Phil got a couple of knocks. A couple accidental, I think, but they were physical generally. And I think Phil was pretty bruised this morning, I would have thought, when he woke up. I think he got a bit of stick. And I think that obviously these teams are going to target people like Foden, and perhaps he can catch him a little bit easier than they can Bernardo. They can't reach him, but it was great. He keeps going. I mean, if Phil Foden ever stays down after a foul and doesn't get up and limp around, you know there's a problem. Oh dear, it's something bad, because he's not that sort of player. But he just dusts himself off, and no magic sponge need. He just gets back on with the game, and he had again of the score. He was up there. I won't tell you who my man of the match was, but he was up there. Last night with his performance.
We'll get to man of the match later. Next up, Jack Grealish. 1 shot block, 62 touches, 94% accurate passes, 5 key passes, 2 out of 3 long balls were accurate, 1 big chance created, 3 out of 7 ground duels were won. He lost the possession 8 times, was fouled twice, and 1 tackle. How do you think Grealish played?
Yeah, interesting that. I mean, I thought he had a better first half than second half, but again, he's getting a bit of stick from various sources. It means I'm not too sure he did. Someone said that early one where he sort of went over just on the edge of the box or in the box. I thought there was a foul in there. I don't think he deliberately dived. I have the City fans say he just dived, but all right. But when I used to play for Villa, I used to think, yeah, he's a bit of a diver, this guy. But I'm not really seeing that element for City. If he goes down, there is usually contact of some sort. It might not be a big solid contact. But again, it's funny, isn't it? Again, it's like Mahrez. It was not a bad game for him to play last night, because I say he got a little bit of him, and I think there you've said his completion rate was excellent. His pass completion rate. He didn't lose the ball that many times, and I don't think he does. That's what I like about Grealish. In the same way, I always spot that Cancelo's lost it. I struggle to find times that Grealish loses it, to be honest, unless he ends up on the floor. He's quite good at holding it and passing it on. All right, not the devastating ball all the time. And he can be greedy, a bit like Mahrez. I think the second half, he had a great chance. And I think, was it Sterling that was free? It must have been late on. And he had a goal rather than pass it. It would have been, if he'd passed it, we probably would have scored. But again, that's just his style of play. He accepts responsibility and tries to score a goal. But I thought he played all right. I say he's not one of the best last night, but it was absolutely a good, solid, standard game. And I say I wouldn't be having a down on him like I think some fans are having a go now. I've even seen City fans saying, "Oh, would we pay £100 million for this?" And there's a lot of starting to get. It's annoying. I mean, City fan. I mean, I know it's not a fan. People say it's a fan base. It's not a fan base. It's just a few dozen people on the internet out of millions. And let's face it, there's millions of people purport to support City in the world. Tens of millions, in fact. So, if you get a couple of dozen coming up with this garbage, people, it's not a fan base. It's nothing. Yeah. I mean, and to me, Grealish, yes, he was. Of course, it was too much. 100 million. Of course, it was too much to pay. But we paid a premium because he's English, and the circumstances. And I probably bolt at that. I wouldn't have paid any more than say 70 million, but it is what it is. And I think the lad's certainly been given great support, but I've just seen a little bit of that easing off a little bit and a little bit of criticism. Certainly didn't think he deserved any criticism last night. I thought he played a good, solid game, and as I say, without he's not going to score loads of goals. He probably had a good chance to score one or two last night, but he just keeps that ball moving. He keeps defenders occupied, and I think that's what we need. And all credit to him. I thought he had a good, steady game in an overall good team performance.
Yeah. On to the substitutes. First of all, Nathan Ake was on for 33 minutes, 1 interception, 2 tackles, 2 out of 3 ground duels were won, 3 out of 3 aerial duels were won, lost the possession 3 times, 1 foul, 30 touches, 92% accurate passes, 1 out of 2 long balls were accurate, and 1 shot off target. I don't know if it was just me, but the defence looked a little bit more shaky when Ake came onto the pitch.
Yeah, I think Bukowski mentioned that the defence was a bit iffy, but I think that may have been the fact we'd made all the changes. We started making all the changes, and it's bound to disrupt the flow of the team. And certainly at a stage where Brugge have got nothing to lose. If you're going to bring, they've got, at the end of the day, they're getting beat. They're getting beat on the night, and they're going to have more of a go. But I mean, Ake wouldn't have been brought on if it was 0-0 or 1-0. Let's be honest about it. It was tactical, and we know Ake will do the best he can. He'll do an okay job, and that I thought. To be honest with you, I thought he played quite well when he came on last night. I wouldn't level anything at him. Obviously, you could say the goal perhaps came from his side, but I think there's about 5 or 6 City players in that box when that Brugge goal went in, and so you can't particularly blame Ake for anything. I thought it was fine. As I said, we wouldn't have seen him. We wouldn't have seen him. It would have been 0-0 or 1-0 or losing by the odd goal. It was just a standard tactical to give someone a rest, because that's what he did. He was bringing players off to give them a rest for a flipping big game this week. We've got a big game on against Brighton, so it was and as to me, I was quite happy when Ake come on. I didn't think, oh no, it's all going to go to pot. So and that's all I want from a substitute. I hate it. I mean, we've had plenty of times when a subs come on, you think, oh, what's the point? What are we doing this for? But within the context of this game, No, I thought Aki come on, and in the length of time he was on there, he did a good enough job.
Yeah, I'd agree. Next up, Ilkay Gundogan. 33 minutes played, came on at the same point as Ake, 25 touches, 91% accurate passes, 1 key pass, 2 out of 3 long balls were accurate, 1 big chance created, 1 shot blocked, 1 out of 1 ground duels were won, only lost the possession twice, and 1 tackle. How do you think Gundogan played when he came on?
Yeah, I think the most important thing about Gundogan is just get time in his legs. He's been out for a little while, hasn't he? And we know he's a great asset, especially in Europe. I think he's a great player in Europe. He can serve different purposes up front and more defensive as well at times, even though he's not the greatest tackler. It's his presence and the positions he gets himself into that sort of make the difference. And I think, again, it was just one of those things that he was brought on when players needed a rest. He was brought on because he can do a job, and it was really useful to get 30-odd minutes into his legs for bigger battles to come in the future. He did have 1 or 2 chances, as you said there, I think, and he's obviously a lot of passes in the time he was on. Did you say 90-odd passes? Something like that? Was that it was?
Let me double check
that. It's a hell of a lot of passes for 30 minutes.
I don't think it was that many.
No, I heard 90-odd. I couldn't. My eyes are going. I can't quite see the stats as well. So, but yeah, because I didn't think he was that actively involved. To be honest with you, I thought he was okay. He was there, and I think I do remember him having a chance. But
91% accurate.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, I misheard. Sorry, mate. Yeah, so that's about right. That's what you want from Gundogan in that sort of position. You just want him to get the ball and not do anything spectacular, and just move it on, just carry the ball and move it on to someone else. And that's what he normally does anyway. That's what he's very, very good at, and he can be quite useful up front as well. But I think it's more to get time in his legs, and as I say, certainly with him what he did, all right. Well, it wasn't fantastic, he did anything outstanding, but just I think the 33 minutes on the pitch was more important perhaps than his overall performance in a third of the game, which is what it was.
Yeah. Next up, the star boy Cole Palmer got the goal, his first goal in the Champions League. He's had an eventful couple of days playing in the Premier League. Scored a hat-trick for the under-21s, then scored in the Champions League. 23 touches, 69% accurate passes, 1 key pass, 1 shot on target. That, of course, led to the goal. 1 out of 5 ground duels were won. 9 times he lost a possession and 1 tackle. How do you think he played?
Yeah, I think with Cole Palmer, I mean, we love him to bits, but a bit like Cancelo, actually, he give the ball away far too much, which we can't do in a tight game, and Pep knows that. Pep's well aware he's going to make these mistakes, of course he is. And obviously, I think his completion rate wasn't great, 69% or something like that. Yeah. But does it matter? Because, I mean, to me, when that goal went in, I felt, I don't know, 3 years ago, 2018, Phil Foden, Oxford United in the League Cup. Watching that, like, give me that sort of feeling. I felt like that. I was dead chuffed. I was really chuffed for him to score. Obviously, it's a bigger stage this even than Phil Foden, obviously at the time. But you think about it, Phil Foden was getting these minutes, wanting games and stuff like that. When when we were winning 2 or 3-0, they bring on Phil Foden, and this is hopefully he won't get farmed out anyway. What we'll do with Cole Palmer, he'll improve for it because, as I said, basically he made a lot of mistakes last night, but when it mattered, that was a super. I mean, he doesn't even have to risk putting it wide. I've seen him do it for the EDS, his goals he scored for the EDS. He seems to have a knack of just putting it enough to one side of the goalkeeper's reach, so he doesn't even have to sort of risk it in a post or hitting it wide, because he seems to sort of be able to gauge. I mean, I might be being too kind to him, I don't know, but he seems to be able to just gauge, just to give it enough swerve to get it round the keeper. He doesn't hit the side netting. He sort of sometimes more or less going near the middle of the goal, but he seems to have that ability and that knack to be able to do that. And that was brilliant. I love it. I mean, I'm so happy for him. The only thing that would have made it better, of course, if he'd played for the EDS in the afternoon, scored a hat-trick and then come and play for the first team, that would have been even better, wouldn't it? Let's be honest about it. I don't think that was ever going to happen. But dead chuff for him. But as I say, it's small steps. I was on Talking Balls on GMR last night, and Natalie Pike and that Gaz lad, and we we're going on about Palmer, and I mean, I didn't get a chance to make a real comment about his potential, the fact I just had to say how good he was with the goal. But yeah, we don't want to build him up too much because, as I say, that it wasn't the greatest statistical display as keeping the ball and stuff, and he's got a hell of a lot to learn. He's got tons and tons to learn. I would say if you compare that Phil to that Phil Foden one, I would have thought 3 years ago Phil Foden was probably less likely to lose a ball than Cole Palmer is. They're not the same players, of course. They're not exactly the same position, but I think Phil Foden was a bit more advanced even at that stage than Cole is at the moment. He needs to be nurtured very, very well. But it's just a wonderful thing to see. I mean, he's from Wythenshawe. Obviously, he's been at City a long time now. I think he's United. His family's United, but I think him personally, because he's been at City that long, you can't not sort of have a feeling for a team now once you've been there all those years. So a local lad, which is nice, because even Phil Stockport, which a lot of people take the mick about because it's not Manchester, is it? But hey, there you go. But yeah, it's great. It was great for him. It's great for City, and I want to see more of him. But as I say, you won't be seeing Cole Palmer, similarly to Nathan Ake. You won't be seeing Cole Palmer brought on unless we're desperate, perhaps last 5 or 10 minutes to stick him up front. We know he can score goals. I wouldn't mind seeing that if we're a goal or two down and we need a goal. And I can't rely on anybody else at the moment, to be honest with you, in our team to actually come on and put the ball in the net. But I would gladly be happy to see Cole Palmer brought on for 5 or 10 minutes at the end of a game up front to try and score an equaliser or put us in front. I would be very happy with that. But otherwise, we're not going to see him unless we're 2, 3, 4 goals up in a game that we're comfortable in. Let's be honest about it. But a wonderful night for him, and I'm sure he was really chuffed. I think every City fan was pretty chuffed for him as well.
Yeah. Next up, Raheem Sterling. He got an assist, 2 shots on target, 3 shots off target, 1 shot blocked, 4 big chances missed. That tells you everything, really. 21 touches, 86% accurate passes, I think that is. 2 key passes, 1 out of 1 long balls were accurate, 1 out of 2 ground duels were won, 1 out of 1 aerial duels were won, and lost the possession twice. Thoughts on Sterling's performance?
Yeah. Used to have boxers that used to kept getting, the old prize fighters in the old days, and used to keep getting knocked down. He kept getting up and then he kept getting knocked down again. And I think this is the problem with Raheem. I mean, the assist, I'll give him credit, but I'm not even sure it was aimed for Mr. Palmer. I think he was going for Mahrez and he just played it behind him. Unfortunately, it went to Palmer. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say he was aiming to give it Mr. Palmer, which is feasible. But, you look at his eyes and you think, well, no, he wasn't really playing it for him. So even that was a bit debatable. But in front of goal, that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, again, he gets in all the right places. Don't get me, his timing of runs is excellent. There's nothing wrong with his old football knowledge and what he's learned over the last few years. He gets in those places, but trouble is when he gets there, he doesn't know quite what to do with it. He knows what he should be doing with it, but his feet don't seem to work it in the right way. There was a couple last night where he could have crossed it rather than shot, so he ended up shooting. If you're going to shoot and not score, then you're taking that responsibility and you have to accept the criticism for it, and that's what he did. And there was one particularly, it couldn't have been long left, and it sort of came, I can't remember who put it across to him, but it was literally, Mignolet had committed himself. All he had to do was toe poke it over Mignolet, and he toe poked it, but it just sort of bobbled to the right. It didn't even go towards goal. It just went off to the right. And that just shows you the total lack of confidence that he's got at the moment. And he speaks a good game. He says he wants more game time and stuff like that. But you get these opportunities and you've got to grab them. Young players have to grab them when they're not very experienced. They get on for 20 minutes of a game. But Sterling, this is all he's getting at the moment. I mean, we know Pep starts him occasionally anyway, because that's what Pep does. Pep will defend him to the hilt. But to be honest with you, if he's going to come on against a team like Brugge, and not the greatest, Mignolet is not the greatest goalkeeper in the world. I'm sorry, he's probably had his days. He's okay. He's okay as a goalkeeper. But these are the sort of things where Sterling has to. I mean, someone said if he'd scored, it would have, obviously got an assist. If he had scored, it would have done him in the world of good. I'm not too sure it would at the moment. I just think, it's like anything. His confidence is at rock bottom. If it scores, yeah, it'll be okay. Someone said if he hits his bum and goes in, this sort of thing. Well, that wouldn't do his confidence any good anyway if he did it by fluke. He needs to be clinical. He needs to score, as a striker would score or whatever, where he knows where he's putting it and the ball goes exactly where he wants to put it and beats the goalkeeper or whatever. But it's such a shame. It's such a shame. He, as I say, run-wise, he's getting into positions. He's beating offside traps and everything. But it's just when it comes to either deciding whether to shoot, he shoots at the wrong time. He doesn't know when to pass. And yeah, I mean, I didn't mark him because he wasn't on long enough last night when I did my little thing. But he wouldn't have scored very highly even for the time he was on. But as I say, again, it's just a problem. It's just a problem, and it's not being solved on the pitch at the moment. So, yeah, I don't know, mate. I mean, what do you think? What do you think about Mr. Sterling? I mean, I
think just one stat there, 4 big chances missed. That tells you everything, really, last night.
That's what you want him for. That's what you want Sterling for. I mean, that's still at his peak. All right, he missed. Let's face it, he wasn't great, was he? But he'd had 3 chances. He'll stick one in. When he's been in his prime. But he's not even sticking one in out of 3 or 4 now, is he? It's just not happening.
Yeah. Mohammed in the chat, and I think he's a United fan. He said, "Rashford better than Sterling?" ? I'd say he is at the moment.
Well, the thing with Rashford, he's not improved much for me over the last few years. I think I would have had Rashford 4 or 5 years ago, and I think if he came to City, he would be a far better player than he is at United. I just don't think he gets the coaching or whatever to improve. To me, Rashford's not improved. I think I like Rashford, don't get me wrong, but I think for England, he doesn't ever look as though he's improved to me. He can score goals occasionally, but he's better than Sterling at this point in time. Of course he is, yeah. Who else can we talk about? I mean, I'm probably almost as good as Sterling at this point in time. You are, Charlie. We all can do something in that position. We might fluff something, and Sterling isn't even fluffing anything. So, of course, Rashford's better than Sterling at this point in time. That doesn't mean Rashford's good. That just means Rashford, to me, could be more developed than he is. I think he's not had that ability at United. I think, just imagine Rashford come to City when Pep joined, for instance. I think Rashford would be brilliant. I think Rashford would be twice the player or even more. Now, as I said, I don't watch United a lot, but I see the scores these players are getting, and Rashford and the Martials of this world don't get great ratings in a lot of games, and they have good games. Of course they do, the bounty, because they play sort of more or less week in, week out when they're fit, don't they? Let's be honest about it. Yeah. I think he's had a few injuries on Rashford or something, but interesting. You say yes, Mohammed, Rashford is better than Sterling at this point in time. If someone said you could have one or the other, I would, but obviously potential, we know Sterling was brilliant. Sterling was fantastic, of course he was. And Rashford, he's got a confidence problem at the moment. I don't think Rashford's ever had a confidence problem. I just don't think his skills have been as honed as perhaps he could have been at another club not far away. But hey, that's never going to happen, so it doesn't really matter. We've got a Withenshaw lad ourselves, haven't we? So it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? We don't need Mr. Rashford anyway.
Yeah, we've got Mr. Palmer nowadays. Next up, the final sub, Fernandinho. Just quickly go through his stats. He got the assist for the 5th goal. He was only on the pitch for 20 minutes, 14 touches, 86% accurate passes, 1 key pass, that will be the assist, 1 out of 2 long balls were accurate, 1 big chance created, only lost the possession twice. Thoughts on Dino's performance?
Yeah, he's become I thought it'd be having a much bigger impact with it being probably his last season again now and getting his contract extended for another year last year because he looked superb into the end of last season, let's be honest about it. But he's a bit of a bit part player this year, and if you want to, again, he was brought on because he can do a job. That assist was fantastic. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I did see a a still image to say he was onside. I did see one proving he was onside. I mean,
I thought it was a
you
mile
don't draw
offside.
lines anymore, do you? I mean, I know they stopped drawing these lines, and I know these lines are stupid, and I hated them. But at least we could sort of see. And now all we're getting is a stop frame, so we can't really see how accurate it is. I mean, I don't understand that. I don't understand why they've got rid of it. Yes, allow more thicker lines if you like, put thicker lines in or something like that. But I don't understand why all of a sudden it's becoming having to look at a little picture on the screen. It's really weird. But it was a fantastic ball. I say that the run was superb. Was it Mahrez? Was it Mahrez? Yeah. I mean, the run was superb, but I mean that was a Phil Foden type thing from Fernandinho. And obviously that was brilliant by him. But as I say, it's become a bit part player, hasn't it? I hate that because I thought he'd be a bit more used, but I can't say too much because you can't really play Rodri and Werner in the same team unless you're being ultra defensive or something. I'm not too sure. Or perhaps if we're 1-0 up in a Champions League final, with 2 minutes to go, bring Werner on alongside Rodri or something, and that's the only way I can see it sort of working in the future. But he won't ever let us down, will he, mate? I mean, I know he's come on before, and I think he came on. I can't remember what game he came on. I had an awful game once. A few weeks back. I can't remember who it was now. But normally you can rely on Werner. He's going to do a little job for us, and he might get booked in the meantime. He might get booked, but he'll do a little job for us, even if it's for the last 10 minutes. And he was brought on just to give someone a rest, and we can rely on him like we did with all the subs last night. I said Palmer was the best for me. I forgot to mention it, didn't I? I mean, Palmer for me, coming on for KDB, it was just like for like. I mean, what more could you say? What more good could you say about a young player that you're not worried bringing KDB off? All right, probably because he's not in the greatest of form, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's because he's as equal to KDB, but it certainly didn't worry me. It certainly didn't worry me when Palmer came on for KDB, and it certainly wouldn't worry when Werner comes on for anybody, because I know he's going to do a job for us.
Yeah. We'll go to Pep then, the manager. Do you think he got it right last night?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get many sort of views of him on that technical space. I think it worked quite well. I think he was happy. We scored the goals at the okay times, 30 minutes just before half time. I think he was, as I said, it allowed him to rest, think ahead. It allowed him to think ahead last night. Obviously it could have been a really tough game last night, but his tactics are spot on. I believe he said he spoke to Kompany, did it, Vincent, about Brugge. Had a few little tips off Vincent Kompany. I've read that somewhere today. I'm sure he's got I'm sure he did all his own work anyway. He always does, Pep, doesn't he, with his coaching staff and all these statisticians and these guys who do this sort of thing. But it allowed him to, Pep doesn't make substitutions on 57 minutes unless, we're doing really well. Because if that was a tight game, he would have just stuck with the players he'd stuck out there. He wouldn't have started bringing players off on 57 minutes. So you knew as soon as he started bringing players off, the game was over and he was confident and happy. Because, Pep doesn't do that. Pep doesn't make them sort of substitutions to start that early in a game, 57 minutes. He just doesn't. It's just not his style unless someone's injured, of course. But I think he'd be happy last night. I think he seems happier in himself anyway, and I think he'll be happy with that last night. Certainly after the PSG defeat, I think that'll perk him up. It's perked us all up a little bit now, thinking that we'll destroy PSG at our place. That's no problem anyway, as long as we can destroy this lot again in a week or two's time, whenever that game is. But I think Pep was perfect. To say, he didn't have to do too much. His plan worked. Obviously, he perhaps would have liked a few more goals, but obviously that is what he's accepting that now. Like most of us accept it. We're not gonna. We get 20 chances. If we get 2 or 3, 4 goals out of that, we're happy. But I say we're never going to do any better than that. So I think Pep's happy. I think we're all. Pep's happy. I think the team's happy as well. So. And we're all happy. So everybody's happy. Everyone's happy clapper tonight for that game last night.
Yeah. Next up, I'll ask you about Club Brugge. How do you think they played?
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed, to be honest with you. I say I've not seen full games, but I've seen enough highlights and watched bits and pieces of games and looked at stats like you got up on there and how they played against other teams. I said the PSG game could have gone either way. It could have easily been a PSG win. It could have been a Brugge win. That game that he played, all right, it's the first game of the Champions League, a bit more emotion, a bit more excitement, etc. But it'll take a good team to sort of. I mean, obviously they're trying for a back-to-back on the league titles, aren't they? I think they won 4 out of the last 6 anyway in Belgium, so they are the sort of big team at the moment in Belgium. But yeah, they're a bit physical, as I said. I didn't like the physicality of them, to be honest with you. They looked okay going forward, but I don't think they look that dangerous. They certainly look far more dangerous against PSG and RB Leipzig when they had a good win there, didn't they? They came from a goal behind in Leipzig. They played very, very well in Leipzig. So yeah, I think the trouble is now. I think they probably will end up in this other cup, this Europa League, whatever it is, and that may distract them from the league. But it'll take it. Whoever finishes above them will win the Belgian league. I think that's the level of Belgian football at the moment. But they're not spectacular. But I think they're better than what they shown last night. I think they were just a bit off it last night. We were on it and they were a little bit off it. So you had you put City on it against a team that's slightly down on what they can normally do. Then there's only one result, I think, and they say Brugge are better than that. And it'd be an interesting game at the Etihad. In theory, we should. I don't think we'll beat them as comprehensively for some reason. I'd love to. 7 or 8 will do me. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they play at our place in the return game, and I might have a better view then. But at the moment, I still think they're good enough to win their league. But obviously, they're certainly not good enough to win. Get through into the next round of this, or in fact, I don't think they're that good enough to win the Europa. I think there's a lot better teams will be in the Europa League as well than Brugge. So the chances of getting down to the last, say, 8 or something like that are quite slim. Certainly down to the last 4 or the final, I would very much doubt it. But they're all right. I said just less of the physicality, lads. I hadn't really noticed it before, but less of that. And I prefer, I'll be happy. I don't like teams that are physical in a bad way. I don't mind a big strong team that works hard, but I just don't like feet being left in and shoulders being used for the challenges and stuff, to people's chests and faces, which was a couple last night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they'll be okay. They'll be okay, I think. Yeah.
Next up, the referee. How do you think he did?
I don't know. I did used to like European referees, but this guy is the inconsistencies, mate. I think with our referees in the Premier League, with these referees in the Champions League now, there's very few. I mean, you can probably count on one hand referees that you think, oh yeah, great, it'll be fair or whatever to both teams. He was all right. He let things go when he should have stopped it. He didn't stop things, which as I said, with some of the physicality. I think he should have clamped down. I'm not sure what they're told in Europe, whether they're supposed to be lenient with the cards like they are told in this country to be a bit more lenient and allow a bit more play, to play on and only stop if you have to and stuff like that. It was okay, but again, it's just more of the same, isn't it, with the referees? Whenever we ever said, what a fantastic referee. The best referees are the ones that are a bit like the Burnley game where he's rubbish, but at least he was rubbish in our favour. He gave us a little bit too much credit against Burnley. But this guy last night, I don't think it. I think he's probably rubbish for both teams. He didn't make much of an impact, thankfully. And that's what you want. You don't want your refs to make an impact, do you? You don't want them to be the standouts. You know what I mean? If they're the centre of attention, there's something wrong. You don't want that. So in a way, that's okay. But yeah, he's not someone I'll put on my Christmas list to send a new whistle to or something at Christmas. That's for sure.
Yeah. The final question, the big one, man of the match. Who are you giving it to?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I had Walker as an 8, I had Diaz as an 8, I had Cancelo as an 8. I had Mahrez as an 8. So my starting point was, if it's a good team performance, I always start at 7. If it's an okay one, I start at 6. So that's why they seem quite high. But if it's an overall good team performance, I always start as my base as 7. So that's why a few players got an 8. But there's one guy got 8.5. I probably hinted at it earlier on, didn't I? But of course, Phil Foden got my 8.5. But I say there was 4 or 5 quality players. There's no one let us down last night. As I say, KDB didn't have his greatest game up to 43rd minute, but apart from that, I thought they were all great last night. But if I had to give one, I'd give it. Certainly wouldn't give it Cancelo, even though I wouldn't give it Cancelo, even though I thought he had a good game. I'll definitely give it Foden on the night. What do you think? What was yours? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Foden, to be honest. I think he was the main man really linking up. He got the assist for Cancelo's goal, and he, like you said, I think everyone played well, but he was.
If it was my heart, mate, I would have give it Palmer just for the
Yeah.
situation. But I mean, obviously, from a footballing point of view, no, then should have given him something special. Obviously, he kept the ball, hasn't he? I think he's got the ball, so that's good. He's got the ball to get signed by the players, and he's kept that, and that's fantastic. That's great for the lad, of course. So that's good enough for him. And I'm sure he's not worried about Man of the Match awards for a 30-minute cameo appearance.
I think Luke is joking, but he said he'd give Sterling Man of the Match.
But I saw that when someone said on social media, which guy can City not do without? Someone sort of tongue in cheek, obviously said Sterling. So I like that because I enjoy that sense of humour. You know what I mean? I'm into that sort of silly humour anyway. So yes, I'm sure he's having a bit of fun.
Yeah. Just quickly before we wrap it up, mate, where can we find you?
Yeah, just if you go on Twitter at Bernard at Charles Dineen, but if you go on any search engine and just put Bernard Dineen, but make sure you spell Dineen Dinnen. All my stuff comes up there on football and film and TV and stuff like that. And I'm on a few little podcasts at the moment, so you'll probably, if you listen to any City stuff, you'll probably get sick of hearing my voice. To be honest with you, I'm on a few things at the moment. You know, even on GMR last night. There you go. I've even got onto the wilds of GMR. But yeah, so if you follow me at Charles Dineen on Twitter, that'd be fantastic. I'll follow you all back, and you can get all my stuff on there anyway.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, coming on. Thanks,
you can find me at MCFC Hibs on Twitter, Dugout Daily on YouTube. All the links to mine and Bernard's stuff are in the description as well, so make sure to check them out. And we're live later for the Europa League matches. Unfortunately, United aren't on Thursday nights anymore. So yeah, we'll see you in a bit, guys. Take care and peace.